Welcome to Mind Decoded, where we explore the psychology behind human behavior. Let's decode today's topic. You replay conversations from 3 weeks ago. You imagine 17 different outcomes for a simple email. You lie awake running through every possible version of tomorrow. This isn't careful thinking. This isn't planning. This is overthinking. And neuroscientist Nolen-Hoeksema's research shows that chronic overthinking isn't just annoying. It's a specific pattern of thought called rumination that systematically damages your mental health, impairs your decision-making, and physically changes your brain. The more you think, the worse you feel. The worse you feel, the more you think. You're trapped in a loop your brain can't escape. Here's what overthinking actually is. It's repetitive, unproductive thought focused on problems and negative feelings without moving toward solutions. Psychologist Thomas Borkovic distinguishes it from productive problem solving. Problem solving has forward momentum. You identify the problem, consider options, choose a path, take action. Overthinking circles the same concerns repeatedly without progression. You think about the problem constantly but never actually address it. The thinking feels productive. It's not. It's a mental trap disguised as analysis. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. This content is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered medical, psychological, or mental health advice. If you're experiencing mental health concerns, please consult with a qualified mental health professional. Nolen-Hoeksema identified rumination as a specific response style. When something negative happens, ruminators focus on their distress and its implications rather than on solving the problem. Why did this happen to me? What does this mean about me? Why do I always feel this way? These questions loop endlessly. They don't produce answers. They produce more questions. Rumination keeps you stuck analyzing the problem from every angle without ever moving forward. The thinking intensifies the negative emotion it was supposed to resolve. Overthinking activates the default mode network in your brain. Neuroscientist Raichle discovered this network becomes active during rest and internal thought. It's the brain's self-referential processing system. When overthinking, the default mode network shows excessive activity. You're stuck in loops of self-focused thought. Meanwhile, your task-positive network, which handles goal-directed behavior and problem-solving, shows reduced activity. You're trapped in internal mental loops while your ability to actually engage with external reality and take action decreases. The more you overthink, the less you do. The prefrontal cortex and amygdala connection explains the emotional component. When you ruminate, you repeatedly activate the amygdala. Each cycle through the negative thought pattern triggers another emotional response. Psychologist Richard Davidson's research shows that people who overthink show increased amygdala reactivity. Your emotional brain becomes hypersensitive. Small stressors trigger disproportionate responses. The overthinking isn't calming you down through analysis. It's training your brain to react more intensely. Overthinking impairs decision-making through analysis paralysis. Psychologist Barry Schwartz found that excessive options and excessive deliberation both reduce decision quality and satisfaction. When you overthink, you generate too many hypothetical scenarios, consider too many variables, anticipate too many potential problems. The complexity you create paralyzes action. You can't decide because you've convinced yourself every option has catastrophic potential consequences. The overthinking feels like being thorough. It's actually making the decision harder and the outcome worse. Sleep destruction is one of overthinking's most immediate consequences. Neuroscientist Matthew Walker's research shows that rumination before sleep delays sleep onset, reduces sleep quality, and increases nighttime awakenings. Your brain needs to down-regulate for sleep. Overthinking keeps the default mode network active. You lie in bed mentally replaying the day, planning tomorrow, imagining problems. Your brain interprets this mental activity as evidence you're not safe to sleep. The arousal stays elevated. Hours pass. The overthinking about not sleeping joins the overthinking about everything else. The exhaustion makes the overthinking worse the next day. Memory becomes distorted through rumination. Psychologist Susan Manica found that people who overthink show negatively biased memory recall. You remember past events as worse than they were. You remember more failures than successes. You remember threats more vividly than safety. This isn't because your memory is bad. Your repeated rumination on negative aspects strengthens those neural pathways. The memories you rehearse become more accessible. You've trained your brain to preferentially recall confirming your negative beliefs. The past looks worse because you've reprocessed it through rumination hundreds of times. Relationships suffer from chronic overthinking. You overanalyze every interaction. Your partner texts, "Okay," and you spend an hour analyzing what it means. They're upset with you. They're losing interest. The relationship is failing. You create elaborate narratives from minimal data. Psychologist John Gottman found that mind reading and negative interpretation are relationship killers. You're not responding to what actually happened. You're responding to what you imagined happened. The other person has no idea you've constructed this entire scenario. They said, "Okay," because they were busy. Your overthinking manufactures conflict that doesn't exist. Perfectionism and overthinking feed each other. Psychologist Randy Frost found strong correlations between perfectionism and rumination. You set impossible standards. You inevitably fall short. You overthink the failure. You analyze what went wrong. You imagine how people judged you. You plan how to be perfect next time. The overthinking doesn't produce improvement. It produces more anxiety about future performance. You become more rigid, more cautious, more paralyzed. The perfectionism drives overthinking. The overthinking convinces you that you need to be more perfect. The cycle intensifies. Here's what doesn't work for overthinking. Trying to stop thinking doesn't work. Psychologist Daniel Wegner's research on thought suppression shows that trying not to think about something increases how often you think about it. Tell yourself to stop overthinking and you'll overthink about overthinking. The mental effort required to suppress thoughts ironically keeps those thoughts active. Suppression fails. Distraction provides only temporary relief. Psychologist Sonia Lubomirsky found that distraction reduces rumination in the moment but doesn't change the underlying pattern. When the distraction ends, the overthinking returns. You've interrupted the cycle but haven't broken it. The thoughts were waiting. What does work is changing your relationship with the thoughts rather than trying to eliminate them. Psychologist Stephen Hayes' acceptance and commitment therapy research shows that accepting thoughts without engaging them reduces their power. You notice the overthinking thought. You recognize it as overthinking. You don't analyze it, argue with it, or try to solve it. You let it exist without giving it attention. The thought loses power when you stop feeding it with engagement. Physical intervention interrupts the neural pattern. When you catch yourself overthinking, do something that requires sensory-motor engagement. Psychologist Jim Cohn's research shows that physical activity disrupts rumination by shifting neural resources to motor control. Go for a walk. Do push-ups. Organize something with your hands. The physical engagement competes for the same neural resources the overthinking was using. You can't overthink and fully engage physically simultaneously. Scheduled worry time contains overthinking. Psychologist Thomas Borkovic developed this technique. Designate 15 minutes daily for deliberate worry. When overthinking starts outside this window, you postpone it. I'll think about that at 5 p.m. At 5 p.m., you actively worry. Most of what seemed urgent earlier now seems irrelevant. The technique shows your brain that most overthinking is unnecessary. The problems resolve or become irrelevant without your rumination. Metacognitive awareness helps you recognize overthinking as overthinking. Psychologist Adrian Wells found that people who overthink believe rumination is helpful. They think analyzing problems thoroughly prevents bad outcomes. Reality is opposite. Teaching people to recognize overthinking as unproductive rather than thorough changes behavior. You catch yourself spinning. You recognize it as spinning rather than analyzing. You choose differently. The awareness itself creates the opportunity to exit the loop. Understanding that overthinking is a neural pattern, not a personality trait, changes how you approach it. You're not an overthinker. You have a brain that has learned to overthink. These are different. One is identity. One is habit. Habits change. Your brain has carved pathways through repeated use. Each time you ruminate, you strengthen those pathways. Each time you interrupt the pattern, you weaken them. The overthinking feels permanent because you've practiced it so much. It's not permanent. It's practiced. You practiced into it. You can practice out of it. And that's how the mind works. If this helped you understand yourself better, subscribe for weekly psychology insights. Thanks for watching.